Hey, class. I'm going to be talking about this in class with you, uh, dormitory guys and gals, um, the next time we get together. But I want to cover it now too, because this therapy I'm going to talk to you about it's not new, really, but I guess it's relatively new. Let's do it that way because it's been around for a while. It doesn't have um, the use, the wide expanse use that CBT has, that cognitive behavioral therapy has, but it's still a popular therapy. And it's very important to understand this because there's a lot of stuff that comes from this. I think you'll like this because it's kind of going to open a door that you might not really realize is even there. Maybe some of you do, but we'll see. We'll see how it works. So there are two things you need to know. First of all, you need to know what this is called. It's called person-centered therapy, or some call it client-centered therapy. Now, who are we dealing with here? Well, where did it come from? It came from Carl Rogers and several others. Carl Rogers, though, is the home run hitter here. He's the one that was all about humanity, humanistic psychology, behaviorism stuff. This is even called, this person-centered therapy, person-centered counseling is often called Rogerian therapy. So because of his influence, he actually assembled this. And it's not that complicated, really. It's kind of like child's play in the approach, but it has some outstanding success. I was thinking of a better word, but we'll use success to describe it. So it's got its basis in a word that you can go around and use after you hear it today and impress your friends: phenomenology, phenomenological thinking. That's pretty cool, isn't it? My dissertation was a phenomenological dissertation. It was a qualitative phenomenological dissertation. Well, what does phenomenology mean? It means lived experience. What is the lived experience of whatever it is that you may be dealing with? So, how does that factor into person-centered approach? It begins and ends with experiencing. What? Everything. So we look at practices in the counseling that build, excuse me, I'm sorry. Sorry about that. A little bit of an allergy thing. We look at the approach to an approach as to how to establish phenomenological knowledge. I want to know what your experiences are. So that's what the experience is. It's what you take away from an experience, and I'm gonna make that evolve for you in a minute. This is kind of an existential philosophy. I don't know if I did talk about it to you who were in class. Existentialistic thinking. The root word gives it away, exist. So existentialistic philosophy incorporated into phenomenology. In other words, what is the lived experience, and what does this have to do with what I'm going through in my existence? I mean, I'm putting it into kindergarten terms, not because you're stupid, but because that's the easiest way to understand it. So I want to understand by exploring how you experience things. The only way for me to do that is to make you the center of attention in this therapy. You have a lot to say when you're in a therapy session, counseling session with your psychologist slash counselor. You're basically running the show, because all your counselor is going to do is a few things to help prompt you into things, but not lead you. So what's the aim of phenomenology? It's to describe how things are experienced by other people, and it's a way to depict the nature and quality of the personal experience. How do you do it? You have to turn off stuff. You have to turn off assumptions. The assumption that you have about a phenomenon. That's what the root word of phenomenology is, by the way, a phenomenon. What is the phenomenon being explored? I'm going to give you an example. I wanted to explore in the beginning, when I was doing my first proposal for my dissertation, I wanted to explore the phenomena of multiple marriages by male Vietnam veterans, because that's a big deal, Vietnam veterans. I'm a Vietnam veteran. I won't go into all 10 of my marriages, but seriously, that is I don't know that it's a problem. I guess it is in a way, but it's a phenomenon. Why in the world can't these guys and gals stay married? Because it's not only just males. I was going to study the males because I know more male Vietnam veterans than I do female Vietnam veterans. As a matter of fact, I don't know but one Vietnam veteran who's a female. However, that's the phenomenon. So I want to explore, and I want to describe this as in I'm having trouble saying this word, comprehensive manner. I want it. This has to be as comprehensive as it can be. It has to be sensitive. So what are you doing? You're bearing these raw emotions. I suspend my assumptions, and hopefully can get you to suspend yours, and as far as it's possible, and then I also guard against imposing my theoretical assumptions on the experience to the phenomena. What is the phenomena? An event, a process, experiences, you name it. So we zero in on those things, yet we're doing it from a neutral standpoint. I hope that makes sense. So I'm a neutral participant in this. You're the one that's had the experience, although what I want you to do is relate it as best you can without guesswork as to how you should feel. I want to know how you really feel, and I hope that makes sense. That's what we call turning off assumptions, turning off things. Not a big word, but suspension of assumptions, if you want to use that word, same thing. So whatever. I don't impose theoretical assumptions on your experience. I don't guide you by giving you keywords or asking leading questions or anything of the sort that would cause you to alter your raw emotion. I want you to describe the directly lived feeling of whatever it is that we're discussing. There are a lot of implications to this. This puts you in close touch with that emotion. You're not talking about it from an abstract standpoint. You're telling me in a therapeutic session exactly how it feels, regardless. I don't want you to sugarcoat anything. I wouldn't want you to hide anything. We can't fix what you're hiding. We want you to spill out to us everything it is that we need to know. You will have an intentionality. In other words, there will be a driving reason that you want to express this. You wouldn't be in our session if that weren't the case. So that's the basis. That's part of the basis. One of the end results of the beginning of this, don't let that confuse you, is that you open yourself up to a better understanding and discovery of who you are. And all I do is facilitate that. I'm giving you a safe place for you to explore yourself without me interrupting you or expressing any kind of judgment. Any kind of judgment. Whatever it is that you're discussing, I'm not going to judge you. And I'm certainly not going to interrupt you. So we're using what Carl Rogers was a humanist, and we're using the humanistic belief from him that you would inherently be driven toward growth and self-actualization. What is that all about? Well, what is growth? Let's start with that. Growth is a betterment of your particular situation. It could be work, it could be marriage, it could be, you pick it. It doesn't matter. If I want to grow in that means that I want to acquire a better understanding, and I want to be able to cope with and function better in whatever the situation is. How about your job? Is that a situation? How about college? For you, most of you, I suppose some of you are working. Growing in a better method of acting in whatever it is you're involved in. Let's call it life. And then what is self-actualization? Self-actualization is a Maslow thing. So we're borrowing, and again, he's a humanist. Maslow was a humanist. We're borrowing from Maslow and Rogers, particularly Maslow here, the self-actualization thing, and this growth thing, actually. Self-actualization means that you reach your full potential, that you are self-fulfilled. So if I'm self-fulfilled and I've reached my full potential, who is it that's going to tell me that I've arrived at that? You. I'm not going to be able to tell you. You will tell yourself. You're going to know whether you think you can go further. Further in what? Further in whatever it is you're doing. Your job, your education. Can I do better? Can I get a bachelor's? Well, okay. Can I get a master's? Super. Can I get a PhD? Self-actualization. You have to try it to find out whether you can or not. So it's not selling yourself short. My role is to be non-judgmental and provide a conducive environment for you to do some honest self-exploration. I'm going to answer your questions. It's called a non-directive form of talk therapy, meaning that it allows you, the client, to lead the conversation, and I don't steer you in any way whatsoever. There's this thing called unconditional positive regard. What does that mean? That's one of the basics of what we're doing here. It means that I refrain from judging you for any reason, providing a source of complete acceptance and support for you. So whatever you tell me is I'm going to be neutral. I'm going to be a listener. If I'm going to, and bear in mind, this is training you as though you were in a curriculum to become a counselor. So these are just basic ground laying things in a particular therapy, client centered or person centered, whatever you want to call it, that helps lead you into being able to do this job. Let me give you 3 qualities that would make you, if were you to pursue this, a good therapist in this type of therapy. Unconditional positive regard. What does that mean? Unconditional positive regard is what I told you a moment ago. I need to accept you for who you are. I need to provide you support. And I need to care no matter what you're going through. Now, am I going to my phone just interrupted me, I'm sorry. Am I going to condone everything that you tell me? No. No, I'm not. But am I going to tell you that? No, I'm not. Because whether I condone it or not makes no difference. If I tell you I don't, then I've just destroyed everything related to client-centered therapy. I hope that makes sense. That's the non-judgmental approach to this. The second thing to consider is genuineness. I need to be able to share my feelings with you. Now, I'm not talking about you becoming the therapist and me becoming the client. I had a student come to me one day, many years ago at a different school, and they said, "Was that another university where I taught?" And there, we were talking about psychotherapy. We're talking about a more in-depth role of psychology, a little deeper than counseling. And the student said, we talked about how do you find a good counselor / psychotherapist. And I said, well, you have to shop around. It's kind of like buying a used car or a new car. Shop around, you find the one you want, and get along. If it's a car you like, boom, there you are. Well, when you enter into psychotherapy or counseling, you need to find somebody that you're comfortable with. And this student said, well, I've been to 3. The first 2, we had a personality clash. And the third one, I became the therapist and she became the client because she was telling me all of her problems. I would go to see her, and all I would come away with was more understanding of what in the world she was going through. That's not what we're saying here when we say I need to be comfortable sharing my feelings with you. What this is saying is giving you the response to what you're telling me, and in an open and honest way, not condemning and not condoning. Does that make sense? I hope it does. So it gives you a model for good communication, and it shows that I'm willing to give you the opportunity to be vulnerable. That's hard for you to do. Sit and think about that a moment. Bearing your soul to someone, and what you get back from them is negative or judgmental. What is that going to do? It's going to shut it all down. And then the last thing of these 3 little items is empathetic understanding. I need to be empathetic with you. That's a little hard to do if I've never been what you're going through. But most often, what you're going to relate to me about feelings is not going to be alien. The experience might be. Maybe it has to do with some kind of an abuse. And I've never been abused. So can I be empathetic? Not to the abuse, but I can be empathetic to the resulting emotion. So I need to let you know that I'm extending you empathy. Uh, and it comes in the form of a positive therapeutic relationship. And I want to be a mirror for you. I want to reflect your thoughts and feelings back to you. So that makes you better understand yourself. So these three things present the basis for how you would conduct yourself as a counselor in this kind of therapy. There's a lot more to this, but I'll call it a day for the moment. Um, read about this person-centered stuff, because it's more popular than it used to be in the past, even though it's been around a while. Rogers' work was done, I'd have to look back, I think in the 50s, maybe. You can look it up if you're interested enough to. But there you have it. That's a good opening salvo of information just about what this person-centered / client-centered therapy is all about. And it's very emotional, by the way. Has a very emotional impact, not only on the client but on the therapist. So there you have it. All right, enjoy the hurricane.